Roll. I see Dana is here.
Here.
Corey.
Here.
Houston.
Yep.
Edna.
Yeah.
I know Chad's going to be in, and we're waiting on Sean, and Sam Perry is here. Okay. So, and I know we have other people joining us tonight as well. So I see Dana is here.
Here.
Corey.
Here.
Houston.
Yep.
Edna.
Yeah.
I know Chad's going to be in, and we're waiting on Sean, and Sam Perry is here. Okay. So, and I know we have. We getting feedback there, Sam?
Sorry about that. Yeah, I didn't realize that was on.
All right, that's fine. That's cool.
I was just sending Sean a new link, so
That's
it
cool.
should be on shortly.
Yeah, I know that. So we've got the approval of the agenda. Has everyone had an opportunity to review tonight's agenda? Any comments, any feedback, any changes? If not, do I have a motion for approval of the agenda?
So moved.
Okay, moved by Corey. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Houston. Very good. Any other comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, agenda is approved. Sam, do we have anyone out there for public comments other than what's on items that are on the agenda for later in the meeting?
We do have 2 virtual attendees, which is good news. We don't always have attendees. Neither one has their hand raised, so we'll just leave it like that for right now.
Okay,
Thanks for asking.
very good. Included in the material that was sent out is the minutes from the March 10th, 2021 meeting. Hopefully everyone's had an opportunity to review those. And are there any comments or corrections, modifications that are needed? Okay. Not hearing anything, can I have a motion to approve the minutes from the March 10th, 2021 meeting?
So moved.
Okay, Edna, very good, thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, Corey second, very good. Any further discussion? Okay, not hearing any, can I go for approval of the minutes? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, minutes approved as presented. Okay. Next up we have is new business, HAPC 2021-01. It's 22 North College Avenue, the former Alexander House, proposing to add a lift to the rear exterior of the structure. And Tom Ellis, Happy People LLC is the applicant. So Sam, you want to take it away?
Sure.
Any comments, and then we'll turn it over to the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll introduce members here that are attending tonight, Pastor Tom Ellis and architect Greg Eller, and I'll give a brief staff overview and then turn it over for any questions from the board members or to the applicants. What we've called the Alexander House, or the Sushinara building, is a very important building in the Uptown Historic District on an important gateway, and happens to also be a US 27 corridor. That's been called the Alexander House because of the doctors that had lived there previously. It was a well-known doctor's office before there was a hospital in town. There were actually 2 different doctors that were there. And so maybe you recall from the inventory that was done, maybe you don't, but it was important not only for a local doctor's office, but also because of the architecture, having some of the Italianate and Greek revival elements, and also being on an important, highly visible intersection in a corner. It's important for the district and the area. There was a carriage house that was in the rear of the property at one time. Within the past couple of decades, that was split off, and then a new building was built there. So there's been a lot of changes over the years. In the mid-'80s, it was put on the National Register of Historic Places. We think as an effort to help to bring some prominence to it for some potential funding to rehab the building. And then after the doctor's office, then it became a restaurant. Actually, it was a doctor's office, and then apartments, and then restaurant was kind of the sequence. And so due to COVID, the Sushi Nara restaurant had closed, and so it's been vacant and underutilized. And the group tonight would like to ask for your approval to actually add a elevator lift. We're calling it, to the rear of the structure. There's a parallel application that's under review now that will be eventually reviewed by the Planning Commission for a church use and a coffee shop. And so the conditional use for the church use is a requirement typically of any church in any district. And but the coffee shop can continue regardless of the outcome of that process, because it's a restaurant continuation. So the purpose of the Historic Commission review tonight is just to look at the exterior aspects. Some of that may come up again as far as the Planning Commission and the zoning code type of requirements for the surrounding area and the impacts, and making sure that it fits well in the area. But from the Historic Commission review, you're looking at, what are the alterations that may be done in a way that is tasteful for the building and respectful of the building, but also for the surrounding property. It's not a demolition request. It's not a major alteration. So that's good news for a historic building for your inventory. So I'll share some slides that were provided by the group. And these are in your packet also. So this is one sheet. You can see on the left some photographs of the building before the leaves have started to come out. Now you can't see it as well. And then these are architectural drawings that have some notes that have been added to them. So you can kind of see the faded part are the original, and then the new more distinctive contrast lines are the additions. And so you can see this is actually looking north. So this would be the south facing to the adjacent property or facing High Street, if you will. So you can see the lift on the left side. And then they've provided also a rendering to give you an idea of what it would look like. It would be a glass and metal structure that would allow folks to access the second floor without having to utilize the stairs. And then from the front facing College, you can see a stair and a ramp to the side entrance there, which would help folks to access that area. And then there's also a sign, which is not the final design, but gives you an idea of what may be eventually submitted for another approval. And then another view looking at the west elevation, you can see which would have been the alley. It's now blocked by a newer building that was built within the past a couple decades. And then this is the Church Street side that you will notice. Really, this is the side that probably would be the most noticeable as far as appropriateness is concerned. And you can see the separation of the lift from the original building. And you might notice that there's some railings here that are not actually the current condition, but at the time the drawing was made, that is the way the railing system was done. So from a staff perspective, we are excited about the possibility that there could be a new tenant, a new occupant for this property to breathe some new life into it. And we have asked for some information and feedback on the overall care of the building, as far as what some of the things that might be done to it, as far as the paint on the brick and some of the wood that needs repaired. And those things have been addressed, and we feel comfortable with that. We don't have a lot of detail yet on those, and that's yet to come. So I think their idea is to get some more feedback and input from the Planning Commission and staff before they get into that level of detail. So I'll turn it over to the commission for any questions from staff, or if you want to turn it over to the applicants, that's also fine.
Why don't I kind of kick things? Why don't we have the applicants, if they have anything they want to add, Sam, to your presentation? Any comments, whatever, let's get them engaged.
Yeah, thank you for meeting with us, and we are excited about the potential, a great iconic historic building like that, and the opportunity to, as was already well said, breathe new life into it. Our architect, Greg Eller, has done a lot of the work and would be able to probably answer any questions as far as the building materials themselves, or even what the setup would be for the elevator. But from just a opportunity standpoint, we're very excited about the prospect of being a part of Oxford in this way, and the city of Oxford, and even the historical element of Oxford that is so well done. So I do know the questions, that I think we'll want to know, as was mentioned as well, is, as we're considering the color schemes and those kind of things, what are the options that we would have for the particular exterior of the building, and those kind of things, because we definitely see it as, a restoration of the building. So Greg, you want to add anything?
I just thank you again, for me as well, for meeting with us. I think, to be used for public use, obviously the church use, getting ADA accessibility to the second floor is, that was the first thing we really had to look at. There's really no place to do a lift or elevator inside the building. Plus, that would be pretty disruptive to the structure and the integrity of the house. So really, to make that second floor usable, we have to get wheelchair bound folks up there. And, what we came up with, we thought was really probably our best solution, just aesthetically as well as cost wise, without, breaking the bank and putting in a, big massive elevator, which in itself would be a big bulky shaft, kind of built on the side of the building. As Sam pointed out, what we have is kind of a lighter structure that's delineated off of the old house, separated so it's distinct and it's not trying to match, and it's just trying to look correct for what its purpose is. So, and then, the rest of the outside, we're really just looking to restore and bring it back. In terms of paint colors, we can explore what past colors were, and, we really want to work with you guys to find out, what would make sense. So, we're not coming in with a predetermined color scheme per se. We're just trying to explore the feasibility of the project first, and then, then we can get into details and work with everybody in a collaborative manner to get that worked out. Colors and, whatever other things we encounter as we start to repair the outside.
Okay.
Didn't look a lot on the inside, but we're not doing a whole lot inside. The restaurant has a full service kitchen in the back that we're not really going to do anything with, and we're probably not going to use it. It's mostly a cafe. So we would rebuild the bar into more of a cafe style casework and serving area. And then upstairs, the rooms were previously already opened up a little, which we would use as our small church use. Obviously, it's not very big, so it would just be small gatherings, really. So, and I think on the inside, we're going to clean and paint and really try to restore the inside as well. So I'll just kind of leave it at that, I guess, and
Okay.
see what
I'd like to start with perhaps a question, and maybe others have the same idea. I've been looking at the material that you shared and what was attached to your application. And I was just curious as to the position of I can understand the need for an elevator and support the fact that being ADA compliant, that's all great. and we would want to work with you to support that and enable the use of the second floor and so forth. I'm just curious as to the position of the elevators, as it appears to be somewhat distant from the building, and maybe it's just how I'm viewing the material that was shared with us. Was there any thought to, or is there something that precludes from the elevator, although being glass, which is great because it wouldn't necessarily block the architecture of the building? I'm just curious as to why the positioning of it is where it is as presented in the plan versus perhaps closer to the building itself.
Right, that's a good question. It's kind of a unique building, what's over there. There wasn't a lot of places, of course, as it being a house, it didn't really lend itself for a commercial elevator out to the outside. So, you know, the front corners of the building, you certainly wouldn't want an elevator on.
No, and then I think having it on the backside, I'm very
Right.
appreciative of.
And so what you could see in those photographs from the original house, at some point they added an addition. I think that was in '85. I think that was done when those hand-drawn sketches that I used as the overlay.
Mhm.
That was a one-story addition that was built on the end of the house. And what it is a roof deck above some restrooms and added kitchen space.
Okay.
So that was kind of pushing, I couldn't get up close to the existing quote unquote two-story house because of that addition.
Okay.
And it's already a roof deck, and they had already built a stair accessing it from the outside. So rather than try and reinvent the wheel, we'll just use that roof deck in the same concept, really. So when people are accessing the building from that side, they can go out up to the second floor using that outdoor stair. And likewise, wheelchair bound or handicapped occupants can use the lift.
Okay.
So
It's just, it kind of caught me in looking at the drawing, not realizing that it to me first, it looked like a freestanding deck.
right.
Attaching to, not realizing there's actually and it was just my mistake that there was a kind of a enclosure underneath that deck. I was missing that. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, that's okay. Well, what was interesting when I was looking at this lift and looking at examples, I found quite a few that were used in a very similar manner.
Mhm.
You know, it's an outdoor lift, so it's made, the enclosure's outdoor, the inside piece is enclosed, of course. You don't really see that very much, but so seems like a good solution.
Okay. Let me open it up to other members of the commission. Anyone else? Any questions, comments?
Yeah, this is Dana. I had a question. So the use of the house would be a coffee shop in the lower level and then the church use up above. Is that the
Yes.
intended use?
Yes.
Yeah, the coffee shop could use both levels
Mhm.
during the week, but yeah, the church would use the upper part for service, potentially on Sundays. So
Okay.
And the idea of having it being glass means that it wouldn't interfere with the design, the architecture of the building. So that's good because it's transparent, and it also, I guess, is much more safe, day and night to have it completely transparent that way. I think, of course, it's great to preserve that building and have it have a new and a reuse or a new use. So that's all good. But I just wondered so I understand why it's glass and metal, but I wondered if what the other ideas might have been, and if that is something you are still working on or considering, or to make this style more in connection with the building.
Well, we actually had considered more of an enclosed elevator, one that was built with walls around it. I guess that's really the only other option, is to put an elevator in that's got brick and mortar or wood studs, a shaft, or the typical situation. But then what happens is that shaft and that all takes on a character of its own. And then does that start to compete with the house? I mean, quite candidly, it's more expensive for the church and everything. So, we're not interested, of course, in the spending more money than necessary. But, it's an open question to you all as well, as perhaps it's even better to not encumber the house with a big bulky shaft.
Right.
A lighter solution would be better.
In the examples you provided, it's almost like the structure itself is kind of, it's translucent, or it's not really trying to take on any kind of architectural presence. It's just the example you provided. I think it kind of works with that building. I think it has like smoked glass and kind of brushed nickel finish. Is that kind of what you're thinking?
Yeah, definitely the smoked glass. I think that makes sense, because it still provides the translucent look, but it's not. I just think that'd be right. And then in terms of the finish, we can get whatever color we want, including brushed nickel, if that's what we want.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's open for us all to kind of figure out what would be best, because we haven't really talked about yet, colors for the house and the trim and the brick and so forth. So, would it tie in with those, or does it want to contrast with it? We're still open to those ideas.
Maybe, yeah, it's such a very pragmatic addition. I think with the glass, you try to make it as innocuous as possible.
Chris?
Yes, Corey.
So I have a couple comments. I agree with the transparency, the benefits of the transparency for the glass, and I know it's somewhat a catch-22, because you're right. We don't want a big bulky brick or other structure, because that's not historically representative. But the metal and the glass, as far as materials, in that part of town, or even if you look in the design standards, a lot of times it's gravitating towards the natural products, which of course steel is not in that. So I'd really be interested, as you explore products, colors, and I know there's more with the main building, just really keeping to that, the spirit of the earth tones, and just kind of that natural setting, because again, it's kind of a paradox what you're stuck with. I did have one question, Greg, if you'll indulge me. In the site plan, what we were provided, it's shows an aerial shot with kind of the white and black outline of the interior of the house, and then the red, I would imagine, the fenced area. In the same spirit as Chris had said about it seeming to be away from the building, and candidly, I've been by that building a lot, and walked by it. I'm familiar with the property, but I did not go to the staircase. Thank you. I figure if I over explained it, Sam would figure out what I was talking about. So right where it says entry, right in there. And again, we're not here to ask for crazy expense, but I just wanted to throw this out there as you're looking at options. Is there actually space between that doorway and the corner? So where it says entry there in the number 10, there's a door that swings out right there. And then just there, is there enough room there to possibly, to Chris's point, sister it up to the building and not have it stand out? Or even, again, it's a cost, but would there be the option of trading the number 10, the window by number 10 for the door. Basically, what's a window make a door, and what's a door make a window, to create that space for you to sister it up to the corner of the building. And part of why I say that not only is the aesthetic, but just thinking of individuals with disabilities who might need to use that. Certain seasons, they're going to go from an enclosed structure to potentially icy walkway, and you know, the stairs, unless there's a swing gate, there's a hazard. And again, this is not necessarily the architectural side, but as I was thinking of the architectural side, it occurred to me what Chris had pointed out. They have to walk across that shaft into the building, and I just was curious if, you know, you could kill two birds with one stone by using that spot. And I don't need on the spot. I don't imagine you have the parameters memorized of one little nook that I threw out, but I just thought I would offer that as maybe a way to accomplish two goals.
So if I understand what you're saying is put it up against the original house to access from the inside, from inside the house, or I guess I'm not sure.
Either inside the house or shortening even if they had to still go to that roof, instead of going across the roof, they would be right there where they would open the door, make a right-hand turn, and they could go into the house. I don't know I couldn't find on the drawings where the door into the house is on the second floor. Or
okay. It's kind of directly across from the lift.
Okay. And again, that's not critical. I happened to see that from the aerial drawing and just wondered if there was a different approach. But all in all, I think the spirit of this is great. I definitely love the concept. I'm on the planning commission, so I am thinking of the things beyond HAPC, and I love the concept.
Yeah, we could look at that location to see if that would work. I had actually thought about and explored a little bit about if you could access that lift from where that number 10 was on the site plan.
Yeah.
And the folks that make the lift didn't like that idea at all. They said that, you know, the intent of this particular model is that it's all outdoor.
Okay.
Access it from the outside at both levels. When you try to start mixing it, you run into not only moisture problems, but also security issues. Because I think the way this works is anybody can use this lift if they have a key, and you get a key if you have if you're wheelchair bound and have the ability to get a key, then it kind of works on all different kinds of lifts and elevators that are private. So I think that's how that works. So if it's going inside to outside multiple times, it becomes kind of complicated. But it could still potentially work like you're suggesting, where it's just moved, and I could explore that.
Great, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Okay. Houston, do you have any comments? Any questions?
Questions, not so much right off. I think the first couple people here have covered a couple of the things I inquired about. When I first saw this, my thought was, I did not want the lift to be on one of the street sides of the building, and so I was glad to see that it is pushed back off of the facade, where its view will be limited to just a certain area there on Church Street. Would you really be able to tell that it's there? And such, you won't really notice it. Maintaining the facade of the building, I think on both the College Avenue and Church Street sides are probably the biggest things we in this would like. Obviously, we want to keep as much historical aspect as we can. An elevator is never really going to fit that bill, no matter what. So I don't mind the fact that it is much more modern looking lift, if it meets the needs for those that need it. and it's positioned in a way that doesn't dramatically affect the rest of the building. So as far as the updates coming in, just the parts that would be visible or any changes to the facade, we'd like to keep those as historically relevant as possible. And as one of the other members mentioned, the use of natural type of materials and color schemes is awesome. So I like the way it looks. I was glad to see that they pushed it back as far as looks like feasible from the Church Street side. So it limits its view from the roadway and limits its impact on the appearance of the facade from that north side.
Okay.
I just wanted to circle back to what Corey said. So I understand what you're suggesting. That would be pushing the whole column into the structure, or because I'm not clearly understanding.
So there, if you look at the diagram, thank you, Sam.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the diagram there, if you find the word entry with the
Yep.
hexagon 10,
Yeah.
Right below entry, there's a swing out door.
Yeah.
And it appears that instead of the stairs being flush to the building, there is a gap between the back part of the original building and that kind of that little nook.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just wondering if there was a amicable product or design, that they could put in there. And effectively what it would do is tuck into the corner where the old building and the one floor extension that Greg had talked about could.
Okay, so
Yeah,
moving it around the corner.
because it would also be hidden behind the staircase, and then all of the ways to get up and down are in one spot. So that also helps with people coming in and out of the door for them as well.
Okay, I see.
And again, it may not be a feasible product, and if the stairs are 4 feet wide, that gap I'm assuming is 4 feet. So that's why I suggested that.
And I would want, be curious too as to the accessibility of the elevator, how to get to that elevator door, having to navigate your way around the steps and so on. I'm with you, Corey. I could see where it is. I just wonder if it's going to present more challenges, more obstacles.
Yeah, and that's why I'd also suggested, again, if it's exorbitant cost or structure, it'll impact the structure, I would shy away from it. But there's a window near the proposed lift site and a door by what I had suggested. So if they flip them, then the traffic is where coming in and out of the first level where the proposed lift is, and then the stairs and the elevator the only reason you would be there is to go upstairs or downstairs.
If I could ask just a question about the elevator itself, the mechanicals of the elevator, are they below ground or is it above ground? From looking at the rendering, I have to think that it's, at ground or below ground is the motor, the mechanics and everything to run the elevator.
Yeah, they're actually in a box that's on the side of the elevator. So the box would be on the Church Street side.
Mm-hmm.
And it's probably only 12 to 16 inches deep.
Okay.
And so you can see on that previous, if you go back to that other sheet. Yep, right there, that darker color, that is a box that's metal clad and it's maybe 1.5 feet deep, and it only goes up to the height of as far as the lift goes up. So that's where the gear mechanism is.
Okay.
And so the lift inside is, you're actually, the walls of the moving lift platform are only 3.5 feet tall. So it's not a fully enclosed platform inside the enclosure. It's just a half-height wall.
Okay.
sense. So that the mechanism lifting, well, you can see on that elevation too, you can see that dark color. It only goes up to 3.5 feet above the upper level because that's as far as the lift goes up.
Okay, so basically as that area, as I'm looking at the picture, it's on the, as I'm facing it on the left side, that's the gear
Right.
that runs the elevator. Okay.
Correct.
So that would all be enclosed. That would not be transparent. The transparent side would be basically, if you're west facing east, would be transparent or translucent.
Correct.
Okay.
And there's, they can exist without any kind of depression, or they'll put in like a 3-inch pit. That's all that's needed because there's not really much underneath it. So we would probably just pour a new slab and pour it with a 3-inch, depression, so it would be flush at the slab at the sidewalk.
Okay. So, any other questions from members of the commission? No. Are we ready to call this? Sam, I note in the attachment, you included the decision criteria. Thank you very much for help, working with that as we've talked in previous meetings about utilizing the decision criteria as we arrive at our decision. So as I've reviewed them, and I appreciate your comments and so forth on there, the fact that this is new, there are other efforts at maintaining the historical aspects of the building in terms of their willingness to work with colors and keeping the style. They're not radically changing the outside. It's really more of a renovation, to the building versus a replacement or a modernization of the building. I think it's very much in keeping with our historic, our desire to maintain the historic aspects of the building.
Mr. Chair, I have some suggestions.
Yes.
I know that they've requested some feedback on colors. And so I actually have written up some potential conditions if you're inclined to approve.
Okay.
And one of those has to do with the colors. So if I could, I'd like to share the screen that does have a older photograph, which are different colors than what you see now with what's left on the degraded paint. So it has a lot of, this was, I believe, from 1985. So you can see that the woodwork was dark and the field color on the brick was light. So it's a nice contrast. So maybe that's something, feedback they could use. And then whenever they come up with their final color selection, we could administratively review that.
Yes, I was thinking the same thing in terms of handling the colorization on an administrative basis.
So Sam and Chris, I don't want to unnecessarily delay this, and I'm kind of on the fence with the current proposal. I would like to see if there are alternatives or things that could be explored, and I don't think it would unnecessarily delay it because we do have the colors and other components to address, plus the conditional use with planning. So is there a possibility to either hybrid the motion, giving, conceptually, yes, I support the lift. I would like to see specifics and alternatives. Is there a way to partially approve so they can move forward conceptually and know that we support the concept, but we'd like them to explore? Because if we approve it as is, I'm not horribly comfortable. I would like to see some other parameters. So I don't know what our options are. I don't want to delay the process, but I also want to make sure we're not rushing to approve something knowing that there's 2 or 3 other steps that are going to allow for adequate time for Mr. Eller and the Planning Commission and others. So I just want to throw that out there.
I have a condition worded just like that, actually.
We have worked together way too long.
So we have worked together for many years.
Yes.
So if you're inclined, I have 4 conditions of approval. one of which is the one Mr. Watt just mentioned. So the first one is not really a condition, but it's basically saying we approve the certificate of appropriateness. We approve the conceptual design and material and location of the proposed lift, with the requirement that other similarly situated location options for a similar lift design be evaluated. That's the one Mr. Watt's asking for. And a condition that the architectural material details are retained or restored. And the last one being that contrasting colors for the painting of brick and architectural details are used.
Okay.
Perfect.
So, Ms. Corey, do you want to perhaps make the motion to approve incorporating the conditions set forth by Sam?
So moved, Mr. Chair. I make the motion that we approve this with the conditions that Mr. Perry has laid forth to us. I believe he said 4 conditions, correct?
Yes.
Yes. So I will make that motion, sir.
Okay. Do I have a second from the commission?
I'll second it.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Sean. Welcome.
Gotta get on the board.
You're good. Okay. Any further discussion? If not, then I'd like to call for, I'm going to do a quick roll on this thing, real quick. Dana?
4.
Okay. Corey?
Yes.
Okay. Houston?
Yes.
Okay. Edna?
Yes,
Okay. Sean?
Yes.
Okay. My vote is yes. Okay. It is the application. It is approved as for the conditions set forth, and very good. I'm looking forward to seeing this building as it comes back to life and is occupied and becomes a very, part of Oxford again.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for attending this evening. Appreciate your input.
Absolutely.
Yes. Thank you all. We will keep in touch. Sam, I guess you'll send just a summary of those points and get those to us, and then we'll explore some other options and locations, and we'll keep driving forward.
And we'll keep monitoring this as well through actions done by planning, as well as any feedback you provide, any correspondence you have with Sam, he'll share out with us. So,
Okay.
Just a quick question, Sam. Could you also include that photo so we can start looking at that?
Will do.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Have a good evening.
All right. Bye-bye.
Goodbye now. Okay. Next up on the agenda, we can talk about the City of Oxford Comprehensive Plan update. You may recall I made mention of this briefly at our last meeting, and I just wanted to kind of bring people up to date. There was a meeting, and Sam's got a slide he's going to put up there to share so we can kind of talk to it. So let me just say we had a great meeting. Jessica hosted a great kickoff meeting. No, we're not building that house.
Sam, you had a picture of the back end of that building before. I was kind of curious if. Yeah. Oh, that's all right. Never mind. I was just.
Okay, so if I can, we had the meeting. They had the kickoff meeting that Thursday after our last HAPC meeting, I think it was, or maybe the week after that. It was a great thing. Turned out, but most all of the different. I had participants representing the various committees and commissions that are on for the City of Oxford. Although I do have to comment that I went through the entire material and not once did I see HAPC mentioned, although I did make a comment to Jessica, but I haven't seen the update since. So, but I was advised that yes, HAPC is considered a critical piece of this. So we're still engaged. So basically, as you see from the slide that Sam is sharing with us, the timeline, and I think this says it well. And Sam, I may want to have this sent out to the group, just so they have an idea of kind of where we are, what needs to happen.
Sure.
Out to the commission. In a nutshell, we're basically asked to be a part of the contributing to the overall comprehensive plan and strategic planning for the city, and starting out with kind of where we are, what's the current state, and then after we've solicited feedback, and Sam and I had a brief discussion about how we may attempt to get the feedback, and it incorporates in a survey they want to do and so forth, but anything else we can do to gather citizen input as to what we've heard, or what they'd like to see, particularly as respects HAPC. And then moving forward, basically, sitting down and saying, okay, outlining what our both short-term and aspirational long-term goals would be. The short-term considered things within the next 1 to 2 years, aspirational being, much longer, up to 10 years, if not beyond, in terms of handling that. I mean, I think it's a great idea. I think it's very positive that the input is being sought by all, so that this comprehensive plan and the strategic plan reflects all aspects of Oxford and the different commissions that support the city of Oxford. So having said that, we've got some deadlines out there. The existing conditions they want to have back to by the end of June. Questions for the community survey also by the end of June. Targeted input, what we got back by the end of October. Then by the end of the year, putting forth the aspirational goals as well as the short-term goals. And I've already kind of put my head around some of this, but I probably need to sit down and put more pen to pencil, start crafting things out. But the reason I wanted to come before the group tonight is I've got 2 goals here. One is to share with you what happened from the meeting and so forth. The other thing too is to ask for some help on this. Now, I know, Dana, you've been involved working with getting the historic marker up and so on. I feel I'm tapping you all the time. So I'd like to, if possible, have 1 or 2 others, perhaps on the commission, want to work with me. I want to make sure we don't end up in a situation where we're violating any sunshine laws and so forth. So we need to keep the group small. Let's not, for the benefit of the plan, sacrifice our operations and so forth. So if any of you are interested in working with me on this, I'll kind of take the lead on it. I've asked to do that. Just please drop me an email and say, hey, I'd like to work with you on this. Let me know whatever you can have and so forth. I don't picture it being a lot of time with this. It's more just perhaps me taking, putting some stuff out and then you providing me the feedback and some, modifications, alternative approaches by all means. And then what I can like to be able to do is in our May and hopefully and definitely by our June meeting, be able to come back and say, okay, here's what we've got, for instance, for the existing conditions and some of the questions perhaps for the community survey in terms of how we want to do it. So having the information ready to go for the first 2 targeted pieces that we have to submit. So, and they've been nice enough to, Jessica and her team. Sam, I think you're part of this, aren't you? So we can thank Sam or blame Sam, whichever way we feel at the time. But I think it's really good that they've put together a template for us to complete this in and so forth, which will help. And I also think would enable them from when it comes time to bring all these together and merge them to at least be able to follow the same template. So just let me know. I'm not looking for a decision tonight. Just drop me an email after this if you'd like to help me with this. I'd very much appreciate it. And Dana, please, I know you've got a lot going on. So, and
Well, I just had a question, Christopher. Is there, are the commissions coming up with their own goals that would feed into? Okay.
it's basically kind of looking at, as it was explained to me, and Sam, jump in if I'm wrong, is the idea that the plan would have an overall goal, but there will be outlined in there the goals of HAPC and the goals of planning and so forth. I know, Corey, you've got representation on this as well. I know you weren't at the meeting, but you had someone else. So, Corey, I figure you're probably engaged in it from a planning standpoint. So.
Yeah, our vice chair, Shauna Rosenberg, is taking the lead for
Yeah.
our group. Yeah, we'll all have individual contributions that hopefully feed up in a linear fashion. And I know you want us to email. I'm happy to help in a dotted line capacity, because obviously the continuity exists between planning and HAPC. So not necessarily in an official capacity, but of course, Chris and I will be happy to make sure that there's objectivity yet continuity.
Very good. Thank you. I appreciate that. I welcome that. So
Hey, Chris, real quick. So are they looking for specific strategic outcomes from this group? Is that what they're asking for? I'm a little unclear.
Getting out to, aspirational goals and some strategic goals. What comes to mind, for instance, as respects HAPC, expansion of the existing, of the historic districts, finalization of the design guidelines, and then, implementation. And those are just two examples I can think of what might be part of our, short-term goals that we want to get to. Okay. Working through that piece, and then looking at it perhaps aspirational as, maintaining, or perhaps looking at other possible historic districts within the city, the city boundaries and things like that. And that's, what comes to mind right now. I'm sure that as we get further into it, there may be some other things that coming up.
Okay, thank you.
Chris, I could give some more guardrails to that too, to Sean's question, if it's okay. I think another way to put it might be that if the city as an organization, as an administration, is not giving enough support to the future outcomes of this commission, then the city administration and the city council and the community need to know that. And this is the opportunity to make that known. And so that's probably not the case because of the work that's been happening over the past few years with the updating of the inventory and the code. But we don't have what I would call a preservation plan, which says, okay, here's some other areas in town that need some love. Here's some buildings that are threatened. Here's, maybe an Indian burial ground or something that needs to be more prominently identified. And if that's not said during this time period, then that's a missed opportunity, because once this opportunity over the next, 12 to 18 months passes, then it's much harder to get those things woven into the long range goals. And so maybe that's another way to kind of say, if you've got something that you've been appointed to serve on this commission, if you know there's something that's not getting attention within the realm of both historic and architectural preservation, this is the time to bring it up. So you can funnel that through, Chris, you can do a subcommittee, you can ask the community for confirmation. There's various ways to do it. This commission, I feel like, is pretty well represented. There's some other ones, maybe not so much, that need a little bit more attention. That doesn't mean that when the city council finally adopts the comprehensive plan update, that it will make the cut, if you will. But if you don't say it now, it won't be included in the consideration.
I think that's a very good point. It's now is our opportunity to put footprints into that comprehensive plan. If we don't provide them with that, you're not going to see it in there, and we're going to struggle mightily to try to get that. I know I'm repeating some of what Sam said. For us to come back after the fact, it's going to be a bigger challenge for us, particularly as regards any type of support and funding. This is our opportunity as best we can, understanding that trying to look at something 10 years out. I mean, it's hard right now to predict what the next 5 years are going to look like, even economically, to try to throw something out there 10 years, but let's give it a shot.
Well, yeah. And with that in mind, and I don't know the plan well enough, but we could make up goals in a vacuum, but if our goals are aligned with those key focus areas, then that's going to be helpful to have support, right? So I'm sure that's part of the process, Chris, that you're serving in and understanding how there can be that alignment.
Yes. And
Okay.
what I'd love to see is if we have something that in court, I'm just going to throw out so that if do we have something that is also high, aligns in with planning or some of the other areas or the Arts Commission and things like that. Edna, I know you're active in that. How can we all work together? Therefore, there's some synergy among the commissions to the betterment of Oxford. And I think that would even leverage more support coming from the city council and the city administration because it's got a greater groundswell behind it, is what I'd love to see. Thank you.
I got another question. Is this comprehensive plan, is it kind of, I guess I'm trying to understand like the planning cycle for the city. Is it something that's done every 5 years, every year, or is this something new, this comprehensive plan?
This will be about the 4th iteration. So it really started in the 80s.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
yeah, the last one we did was 2008. So it's roughly every 10 years.
Okay.
Ohio doesn't have a statutory update cycle like other states do. So some cities don't do it quite as fast as they probably should. So roughly every 10 years.
About every 10 years. Okay.
Yeah.
And I
With
think
a 20-year horizon.
What's really cool about this comprehensive plan this time is that it's going to be more dynamic and it's going to respond better to what what people want. It's not going to be one thing written in stone, but it seems to be something that will be ongoing, and that's really great. Also, the interactions between among the various commissions and boards is going to make it stronger. And do we as a commission, as HAPC, don't we have to have a public meeting at some point?
we do. And matter of fact, that was one of the things Sam and I chatted on briefly just before the meeting, just throwing out ideas. And particularly with COVID, look how we've been challenged to even have the public meeting about the expanded historic district. How do we work with that? And as a matter of fact, I was going to stop in and see Sam, over the next couple of days, next week, to start bouncing ideas. We talked about maybe hosting something perhaps at the new amphitheater that's behind the arts building, or something like that to get people in. It's outside and enable that. The other thing too is to see perhaps if there's another commission that's looking to do the same thing. Do we buddy up somewhere so we have, instead of having people attend 2 different meetings, can we, perhaps get some synergy with one? I don't know. That's just things to think about. I'm not sure if any of the other commissions have gotten that far.
It's interesting that you talk about the Public Arts Commission because, HAPC is very linked to planning, but also in some ways to public arts because on the one hand, we want the city to be dynamic and, creative. On the other hand, we want to preserve the past. We want to find ways to make sure that those 2 concepts are not at odds and that they work together. So, that's, I don't know how we do. I don't know how, I just present the problem. And I guess that actually is an existing condition rather than a solution to the problem.
Right.
You have an idea of their future state. We just need to figure out how to get there.
And again, from what I got from the meeting as it was presented to us is that if I could, oftentimes I hear in a city council meeting, the strategic plan held up like as if it's written in concrete and stone, and this must be the way we do it. We said we do bike paths, damn it, we're going to do bike paths. And I just use that as an example. I'm not picking on David Prithridge in this call. This, to me, struck me as being more, what I think is appropriate is more directional in understanding. And Sam, correct me if I'm wrong, if my interpretation of this is wrong, is because there could be other impacts within the environment and so on, external, economic, and so forth. At least this sets a path. It sets a direction from a comprehensive plan, of a strategic plan to all this, versus being, it's said once and damn it, we're going to do it regardless of what may have changed around us. That's all. I'm off my soapbox.
Do you have material you could share with us from this? We can understand it a bit more.
I've got some stuff we can send out.
Okay.
I'll try to pull excerpts out of, I can forward even what, if you want, what Jessica sent to me, but I think if we get the slide from Sam that he had put up for me to
Yeah.
do, and even this short thing to put together the outline, basically the PowerPoint deck that they're looking for us to put together,
Mhm.
you'll have a framework on which we're going to be working with.
And you were on like a retreat with.
It was a maybe a 60-minute night, maybe 75-minute Zoom call
Okay.
when we
Okay.
did this.
Okay.
Yeah, the trust fall was really bad.
Trust ball.
Okay, Sean heard me.
A bad joke. It was a bad joke.
Thank you.
Virtual trust fall.
Like a talking stick or.
Yeah. Well, and even though Sean is leading the charge for the planning commission, just an example, I think this is our opportunity to be aspirational, but it's also our opportunity to identify some housekeeping needs, if you will. So last night in planning commission, Sam had a great observation. We were talking about a planned unit development and an annexation, and it's not good or bad. It's just not necessarily maybe the best way of how annexing is handled. So, even some of those theoreticals that we talk about, should planning commission be involved in annexation? Should this and that? And the correlation to HAPC is the historic. We've talked a lot about that, but architecture has always been so easy because people can see, feel, and touch it. But this is a really good opportunity for some of the discussions we've had about like the neighborhood on the north side that has a lot of African American history. To the the work that Dana's been doing. So I think that's the fun part about this is we can actually push into some of those less tangible or concrete concepts that we really wanted to go down the last couple of years. And to Edna's point, that's where I think we can find some continuity with the Arts Commission and even the Environmental Commission of so how do we all play and how does this all fit together? So from what I've heard, it's going to be really, really good. And to Sam's point, we throw a whole bunch of stuff out and see what Edna and the folks in the council see what sticks.
No pressure, Edna. Just
no pressure.
Just remember HAPC.
So really you could call the comprehensive plan a strategy, the city strategy. Right? Okay.
Because from a planning perspective, trust me, there's a lot of times where we're like, wow, it's over a decade old. Could we update this part? Or, hey, Sam, what can we do here? So,
I mean, I think probably all of us have worked in organizations that have strategies that just kind of like molder around and they're not.
And the thing you don't want to end up with let's call it a strategic document that gets written and then gets put on a shelf.
Yeah, you want to
we go someplace else.
It's a living document that produces change in action.
Because of the staff that we have right now, we're able to merge a strategic plan with a traditional comprehensive plan update at the same time. And that's going to be the first time in Oxford history where we've been able to do that. So,
okay.
So that's, yes, to your point, Dana, it's a strategic plan with the traditional elements of land use planning incorporated into it.
Okay.
So,
Okay. That's
all right.
That's great. I mean, I've been trying to do the same things at Miami University with not much success, but
maybe you'll take
Oxford is leading, the city's leading the way.
So, okay. More to come. We'll get the information out to you. Look for emails over the next couple of days. Okay. We'll find out what we can. Okay. One other thing I wanted to get into before I asked Dana to give us an update as to how we're doing with the marker and so forth. I just want everyone, if you didn't see the note, our favorite or behind the scenes person for HAPC, Lynn, is actually retiring the end of this month. So I would ask all of you, if you have an opportunity, she's She's been a godsend to me at times, sending stuff out, handling approvals. Just drop her a line, whatever. Totally up to you. I know I'm planning to stop in over the next couple of days to wish her well and so forth. But I just wanted to say she's been involved behind the scenes, making things happen. You know, there having things ready for me to sign off and so forth. She's been very helpful and appreciative. So,
And she's retiring at the end of April?
yes.
Okay.
So there's an email out. I think Sam sent something out earlier today. So you see that in your inbox and so forth. So moving on, Dana, could you, while I see you kind of sent, can you give us an update as to how we're doing on the marker? But before that, I just want to say, I want to thank you for the great presentation you and Sam made at the city council. I mean, I had an opportunity to be part when you walked through there in the work session. It was very engaging, and I could see you speaking through it. You were there, actively engaging and so forth. And I appreciate all your efforts up to now and your efforts going forward at bringing this into reality.
Well, thank you, Christopher. And thanks, Sam, for facilitating all this to get it through. I think we had some good discussions that night.
Mhm.
I think as Sam said, and I said, I think the process is working when we're having those kinds of discussions.
Yeah, and it was good also, Edna. I didn't want to ignore you. I want to thank you because you two, very heard at the meeting as well. And I think your comments were very well appreciated.
Thank you. I think that part of what the Historic and Architectural Preservation Commission can do is be part of the work of the city in terms of collective memory, which is, I keep talking about that because I think that we as a society have to remember the past. And that's one reason that historic and architectural preservation as a commission should be so important. That's one of the things we should do. So I hope that as we work on our part of the strategic plan, we insert the word, collective memory. We as a community and as a nation, and we have to start locally, have to work to acknowledge the past in all kinds of ways. But the marker is one way.
Edna could have asked you, you hold us to it. Work. So, okay.
I do have a few updates. I mean, I did put the EJI people in contact with Steve Dreisbach, who's the service manager for the city, just, where to ship the thing. It's being manufactured now. I did ask, I was curious, who is the manufacturer of the marker? I know that the Ohio State markers are manufactured by Siwa. I think Siwa Studios over in Marietta, and that's just one of the many fabricators that they use. So I'm not sure who's going to make the one for here. And then, so I just made that connection with Steve and EJI. And then I guess I was going to ask you, Sam, do we have any updates on the utility location mapping or anything you need me to do on that end?
No, I haven't heard anything on that. It's pretty much all turned over to the service department. I'm handling a little bit of the tourism side for the awareness for the conference attendees with Enjoy Oxford to get a QR code there next to the marker. But no, I haven't been involved any further on the actual final location.
Do you want me to follow up with Steve?
With Mike?
Or Mike Dreisbach, is that?
Yeah.
Mike, okay.
Mike, yeah. If that's something that's a question that you're curious about, that'd be a direct contact would be the best.
Okay, I'll follow up with Mike.
Sounds good.
Dana, thanks for the update.
Sure.
Okay. Anything else for the good of the meeting, good of the commission?
Oh, I do actually have one other update. I did get an updated date from Dr. James, or the goal of getting the marker installed would be June 13th, just to give him enough time to have the dedication would be the 22nd. So that's kind of the target we're shooting for.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
Anything else?
June 13th.
Anything else for tonight's meeting? Yes, Edna?
We have been, that is to say, the group that works on the historic tours each year has Valerie Elliott and Steve Gordon and Mike Smith and I, and Corey has volunteered to be part of this too. And we've been discussing what to do. And since we still cannot meet in groups of, more than 10, we're thinking of waiting before we decide whether we're going to do it either in June or wait until next, maybe the fall or maybe next year. But so it's certainly not going to happen in May.
Mm-hmm.
And it may be just four talks this year, not 5.
Okay,
That's where we are.
thank you.
I don't know. In other words, I really don't know whether we're going to do it or not this year.
It's a whole lot of that, as you heard me mention earlier, just even trying to get the group, where we are in the timeline for the expanded historic district.
Well,
COVID is wreaking havoc on a lot of things.
in this case, you're talking about a tour of adult people, in a kind of a walking on a sidewalk and on streets, and it's kind of difficult to think of how you would enforce, the ideas about being safe in terms of not being the 6-foot distance and not more than 10 people. So that's why it's not going to happen until the governor's decision is made.
Okay.
Is lifted.
Very good. So, anything else?
I got something interesting to share. I've developed some sort of pandemic weird hobby of buying old stock certificates. There's this outfit called Ghosts of Wall Street. They do some pretty cool stuff, but I ran across one from the Junction Railroad Company, which was the original company that built the rail line from Hamilton to College Corner. And I got an 1853 stock certificate.
Wow.
So when you talk about the Junction House and that new historic district, and that's the genesis of the railroad that eventually was bought by B&O and Chessie and then CSX. So
That's
you want to
excellent.
see it someday.
Wow.
I bought that. So that's my pandemic hobby. There's actually a name for it, scriffophily or something like that. But
So, anything else? Okay, if not, do I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Okay, Mr. Watt, do I have a second?
second.
Okay, second by Dana. All in favor, say aye. Okay, we're out of here. Sam, you gonna send another link for Corey and I? Got it.
Okay.
Yep, just for the two of you. Yep.
Okay.
Bye-bye, everybody.